This evening I shall explain about 3 stages of mental defilements or Kilesa. As you know, the aim of mental training or meditation is to purify the mind. I shall quote a sutta, a discourse from the Samyutta Nikaya, the connected discourses of the Buddha. By what is the world led around? By what is it dragged here and there? What was the one thing that has all under its control? So the answer is the world is led around by mind. By mind is dragged here and there. Mind is the one thing that has all under its control. So it's important to mindful of the mind. In accordance with the explanations of commentaries, those who come under the control of the mind are subjected to all kinds of obsessions. For example, one could be obsessed by all kinds of sensual objects, and when they are indulged in all kinds of sensual pleasures, they sometimes it could become a cause to commit evils and taking birth in the state of loss. So those who come under control of the mind have not yet fully understood the reality. In other words, they have not yet fully understood the 5 aggregates or the true nature of mentality and physicality, and uprooted the mental defilements. Those who have fully understood the true natures of the 5 aggregates or mentality and physicality, and have uprooted the mental defilements, will not come under the control of the mind. Rather, is the mind that comes under their control. So, if you do not control your mind, or in other words, if you do not train your mind, cultivate your mind, you shall never become the master of your mind. You might become the slave of your mind, which is obsessed by sensual pleasures or sensual desires and so on. So it's important to develop the mind, or in other words, to develop wisdoms, to cultivate panya, in order to uproot the mental defilements. So there are three stages of defilements. The first stage is known as Anusaya Kilesa. Is translated as latent defilements. Although those defilements that are lying dormant in the mind. Anusaya Kilesa is also translated as a potential to commit evil. The cause of evil is mental defilements. So Anusaya Kilesa is uprooted when one has attained the supramundane path knowledge, or the supramundane wisdoms. So this Anusaya Kilesa consists of two. The first is known as Santana Anusaya Kilesa. The potential defilements lying dormant in oneself. In other words, in the continuum of these five aggregates. As you know, a person, a being, an I or you, in the ultimate sense, consists of five aggregates, or Namarupa. So there are these both defilements that are lying dormant in this continuum of the five aggregates. Then the other Anusaya Kilesa is known as Aramana Anusaya Kilesa. The potential defilements lying latent in the sense objects. As you know, there are 6 kinds of sense objects: visible object, sound, odor or smell, taste, tangible objects, and mental objects. You may know from your experience in life that when the eyes is seeing an object, a person that's not agreeable, then there be a rising of certain defilements, aversion, thoughts of ill will. Or when you hear the voice of a person whom you dislike, then aversion arises. So if you do not see this object that's not agreeable to you, or you do not hear the voice of the person whom you dislike, then the mind remains calm, peaceful. So this is known as Aramana Anusaya Kilesa. So when there's a defilement arising, then the defilements has reached the second stage. That is known as Pariyuthana Kilesa. So you know that there's an aversion or anger arising in the mind. If one doesn't make an effort to remove it, for example, the anger or the feeling of hatred is getting stronger and stronger, overpowering oneself. So these strong defilements can cause a person to violate the moral precepts. For example, the first precepts. So, in the words, the defilements has reached the second stage, which is known as Vitikama Kilesa. Defilements that cause a person to commit evils or violate the moral precepts. So that's why the Buddha taught us three kinds of trainings. In fact, the teachings of the Buddha consist of three kinds of training. Training in morality, training in concentration, and training in wisdom. So, the aim of training in morality is to overcome the third stage of mental defilements, Vitikama Kilesa. If one is able to observe morality firmly, then one could prevent oneself from committing all kinds of evils. But observance of morality or moral precepts could not help a person to overcome those defilements in the mind. So that's why mental training is important. So when you cultivate or develop concentration wisdoms, then you are able to overcome the mental defilements. If you practice concentration meditation or samatha bhavana, then you could overcome the second stage of mental defilements. For example, when there's a anger arising, then you direct your mind to the thoughts of loving kindness. When you could develop the thoughts of loving kindness very well, the anger will be subsided or replaced by that good thoughts of loving kindness. But concentration does not have the power to uproot the latent defilements, anusa kilesa. So anusa kilesa consists of two. The first is santana anusa kilesa, the potential defilements lying dormant in the continuum of the five aggregates. So this santana anusa kilesa is uprooted by the path knowledge. The second one is aramana anusa kilesa, the potential defilement lying latent in the sense object. So aramana anusa kilesa is removed by vipassana knowledge or insight knowledge. So it is important to mindful of the sense doors. In fact, this practice, when we look from another angle, actually this practice is based on 6 internal and 6 external sense bases. So when you're mindful of seeing or in mindful hearing, you are in fact practicing mindfulness Dhamma. Is one of the subjects of mindfulness of Dhamma is mindful of 6 internal and 6 external sense bases. So it's because of unmindful, the defilements can arise when there's a contact of with the sense object and the sense thought. So immediately defilements will be arising whenever the sense thought come into contact with those sense objects. So there in brief, there are 3 kinds of overcoming or abandonment of mental defilements. The first is known as vikambana pahana. In other words, overcoming or removing of the mental defilements by absorption concentration. So when a meditator is able to develop deep concentration by the practice of samatha, then the defilements is suppressed by that deep concentration, for example the absorption concentration. So the defilements is not able to arise. But when a meditator who is practicing concentration meditation has stopped the practice, then there's condition for defilements to arise again. So this is known as vikambana pahana, overcoming or removing of the defilements temporarily by deep concentration, such as absorption concentration. Then the defilements that's arising due to the sense object is removed by vipassana knowledge or insight knowledge. So this way of overcoming mental defilements by insight knowledge is known as tatanga pahana. So if one could overcome the defilements by tatanga pahana, then eventually tatanga pahana will pave the way to samujjeta pahana. Samujjeta pahana means overcoming or uprooting the mental defilements, in other words anusaya kilesa, by path knowledge. So in other words, if one is not able to overcome aramana anusaya kilesa, then it's difficult to uproot santana anusaya kilesa. So meditators need to overcome the defilements arising due to these sense objects. So if meditators could not overcome aramana anusaya kilesa, then it's almost impossible to uproot Santana Anusa Kilesa, those defilements that are lying dormant in the continuum of the five aggregates. So meditators need to mindful of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, or when the mind is cognizing a mental object, an image, or memory. So it's important to mindful of them as they really occur. It's because of unmindful, then meditators might cling to this sense objects. So you may know from your experience, when you see a visible object, when you hear a sound, when there's a smell, and especially when there are various mental objects, such as the image of your enemies, or memories. You may know from your experience that certain mental objects give rise to emotional feelings and mental defilements, such as anger, thoughts of ill will. So no one can remove these defilements for you. You yourself have to follow the path or the way shown by the Buddha. That's by the practice of the four foundations of mindfulness. If meditators are not willing to look at their mind, in order to mindful of various mental states, then they do not know their mind, they could not understand their own mind, they could not liberate their mind from all kinds of defilements. So sometimes meditators have to face with it. Instead of directing the mind back to the basic object or to other phenomena. At the beginning of the practice, mindfulness is not yet strong. So certain mental objects, as well as the defilements, could be overwhelming, in just overpowering oneself. So one needs a lot of patience and courage, and be mindful and note them repeatedly. Although we understand that all phenomena are not permanent, all phenomena subject to arising and passing away, but it's not possible to overcome our perceptions of permanence. It's because when you hear from others, when you read the books, what you have gained is known as second knowledge. In other words, knowledge without any experience. So that second-hand knowledge is not able to help you to remove or overcome the mental defilements as well as the emotional feelings. We only could overcome the defilements or uproot the main defilements by first-hand knowledge. So this first-hand knowledge is gained through personal experience or direct experience. So in other words, only by the practice of mindfulness, be mindful of whatever mental object that's arising at the present moment, or whatever mental defilement that's arising at that moment, and note it as it really occurs. Then you come to gain direct knowledge. As you're mindful of the mental objects or mental phenomena, or any physical object or body sensation, as you're mindful of them as they really occur, you are in fact gaining direct experience into it. You do not have to conceptualize your experience. You are merely paying full attention to your direct experience or personal experience. You do not have to contemplate that this object is impermanent, or this thinking or emotional mental state are arising by themselves, is beyond my control, is anatta or not self. You do not have to contemplate in that way. What should be done is paying bare awareness or bare attention. So meditators might have to mindful and note certain mental objects or defilements again. For example, sometimes there's a memory. As soon as you be mindful and note thinking, but when the mindfulness is not yet strong enough, a memory causes another mental state to arise. For example, anger. Then you have to mindful note anger. So you have to pay full attention to that mental state of anger. If a meditator is mindful and note anger, at the same time the mind is still thinking of that incident, that past incident that caused the anger to arise, then it's difficult to overcome the mental state of anger. If meditators pay attention to the contents, then it's difficult to be mindful at the present moment, or in other words, living at the present moment. When there's a past memory arising, if meditators could mindful and note it as a thinking process that's happening at that moment, then meditators are still living at that present moment. If meditators are paying attention to the contents of that memories, most likely meditators will be carried to the past, will be carried away by that memories to the past. Then meditators becomes unmindful. So when meditators mindful note anger, so meditators should pay full attention to that mental state of anger. If meditators have patience and note it again, so by mindful and note it again, meditators are building up the momentum of mindfulness. Anger. So when there's momentum mindfulness, the strength of mindfulness will be getting stronger. Eventually, mindfulness will overcome that mental state of anger. But sometimes the same thoughts or the same memory could be coming back again and again. Even though we know there is suffering, sometimes certain memories or mental objects give rise to emotional mental states or defilements. We know there is suffering. The emotional feelings and defilements are the cause of suffering. Yet the mind like to think it again, or go back to the past again and again. So this is the nature of untrained mind. In other words, the mind is clinging or grasping that memories or certain mental objects. This clinging or grasping because one has not gained the first-hand knowledge or direct experience into the true nature of that mental states. Clinging can arise because one attached to it, taking it as permanent. But when one could mindful and know it again, eventually one come to realize the true nature of that mental object or that memory. So in other words, meditators sometimes have a lot of mental states. If they ignore it, they may not able to make more progress. So you have to realize that the aim or the purpose of practicing mindfulness meditation or vipassana meditation is to realize the true nature of mental and physical phenomena or nama rupa. And mental phenomena also includes the noting mind, or in other words, the mindfulness or the awareness. So meditators sometimes may have to note the mental object again. But when the mindfulness is getting more and more powerful, eventually they may not have to note certain mental objects or memories for a long time. It's because the mindfulness is strengthened by being mindful and note the mental object repeatedly. So when the power of mindfulness is strengthened, then meditators could be mindful and note the memory once or twice. Then that mental state of memory will disappear instantly. Then when the memory has disappeared, then there's no feeling of anger or any emotional mental state arising. So this is known as tatanga pahana. It's because meditators are able to mindful and note the phenomena and whatever phenomena, whatever mental states such as anger, caused by that phenomena. So that's why it's important to mindful of the six sense objects. But at the beginning of practice, meditators may not able to perceive the consciousness of a hearing, conscious of seeing, conscious smelling, and so on clearly. But when meditators are able to realize the true nature of physical phenomena clearer and clearer, in other words, when meditators are able to realize, for example, various processor movements clearer and clearer, such as the rising movements, falling movements during the sitting meditation, or be able to mindful of the various processor movements during walking meditation, and mindfulness of daily duties clearer and clearer. In other words, they only experience various process of movements. Then they will be able to realize that the consciousness which is arising or dependent on the movements also will become clear or evident by itself. So when meditators could realize the consciousness of touching clearly, or the mind conscious clearly, eventually they also come to see the arising of the mindfulness of the noting mind clearly. As for example, when there's a sound, if the mindfulness is not sharp and strong, meditators could not perceive the consciousness of hearing clearly. The attention of mind would have gone to the sound, paying attention to the sound. So meditators still have to mindful and note hearing. If the sound is very persisting, meditators may practice indifference, thus not paying any attention to the sound. They may direct their attention back to the objects or phenomena that are internal. But when mindfulness is getting more attentive and precise, meditators could perceive the arising of consciousness clearly. When there's a sound, then there's a rising of consciousness of hearing. The meditators will be able to note hearing very precisely. As you know, consciousness, the arising and passing of consciousness on the mind is 7 times faster than a physical process. So then when your mindfulness is getting stronger, you could perceive the arising of the mindfulness awareness that note the hearing consciousness. If your mindfulness is getting stronger and stronger, you may come to realize there's another process of awareness that note the awareness or the mindfulness, or the first process awareness. For example, when there's a conscious hearing arising, then the noting mind or awareness will be arising, knowing the consciousness of hearing. But that consciousness of that noting mind or awareness that noted the conscious hearing, it also can become an object for the following process of awareness of the knowing mind, knowing the arising of this noting mind that noted the consciousness of hearing. So when meditators could develop mindfulness correctly, they come to realize cause and effect clearly. As you know, the sound is a cause, arising of the hearing consciousness is an effect or the result. So this effect can become a cause for the arising of the noting mind or the awareness. Sometimes if the mindfulness is very sharp, there will be another process of awareness or noting mind arising and noted the previous process of the awareness of the noting mind. So the meditation, mindfulness meditation, is very interesting. Meditators take interest into it. They come to see the mind clearly. They come to see their mental state clearly. They come to know their mind well. Then they can learn from their mental states. When you mindful of your thoughts, your memory, you may learn a lot from them. All these memories due to the actions of your speech done in the past. So that's why a famous Buddhist scholar, the well-known Buddhist scholar, Venerable Nyanaramsi, in his writing say that the teachings of the Buddha is a doctrine of the mind, and mindfulness is the only way to know the mind. The mind is very near to us, but because we do not know our own mind, so it seems the mind is very far away from us, unknown to us. So mindfulness is a way to know the mind. Mindfulness is the only way to shape the mind or to mold the mind. In other words, the mind could be obstinate or stubborn. So that means not pliant, not soft. So we need to train our mind, soften our mind. And mindfulness is the only way to liberate the mind, because the mind is full of bondage. So mindfulness is the only way to free the mind from all kinds of bondage. So mindfulness is the only way to liberate the mind. So the first thing to overcome is the defilements or causes caused by various sense objects. So we overcome aramana anusaya kilesa by tadanga pahana. So this tadanga pahana, in other words, when one gains, when meditators have gained various insight knowledge, this insight knowledge overcoming aramana anusaya kilesa, then it will pave the way to the attainment of samucceta pahana. In other words, uprooting the latent defilements by path knowledge or supramundane wisdoms. So in other words, mindful of the mind is always important. But if there's no mental states, the meditators should be very mindful of the body phenomena or body sensations, whichever is more distinct. Meditators only emphasize on one object or certain phenomena and could not realize the mental state or mental process clearly, then they could not make more progress. So if you wish to become the master of your mind, then you should be patient with your mind and have courage to mindful and note whatever mental objects or whatever sense objects that give rise to mental defilements or emotional feelings.